to say very specifically what we, at least I felt as a member of the jury, after hearing both the various presentations and the response which the World Bank has given. The overall impression is, of course, that the World Bank's response is not very specific to the allegations which have been made, and I'll just pick up 4 or 5 specific cases. It will take about a minute to show how actually what many people say, that good English, that is the clever use of the English language, is being used to gloss over real issues. Well, the first one, and this was in one of the presentations by Anil Satgopal on education, and if you look at the World Bank, you will see a specific charge was made that the government is doing is a one-teacher school at the primary level for the poor. That is 2/3 of India's children, school-going children, this was his figure, but at least half, will be going to schools from class 1 to 5 in villages and so on, where there will be just one teacher, like in the old Pathshalas. And this has the full approval of the government and, according to him, of the World Bank. Now, when the World Bank says in its note that they are for primary education, I mean, you can say that you are for, who will say that they are not for primary education? But it is this kind of charge they should have said definitely that yes, we are for it, we are against it, and this is what I mean by being non-specific in education. Now, the second one I take up is another charge which was made is by a lawyer, Prashant Bhushan, which is about the revolving door policy, which is mostly a government of India's policy, that is people at very high policy making level come to the World Bank on high salaries, so on and so forth, and go from the World Bank, and very often there is no check on whether there is a conflict of interest. Now, while the primary responsibility is of a national government, we want to know, and the World Bank should have said it, at least should have responded in its website, about whether conflict of interest is something which they recognize or do not recognize. Now, there is no answer, actually there is no mention to this most serious charge of revolving door policy. Well, the third specific instance I want to take over, I mean, all this is in relation to how just amorphous the World Bank's whole note is. The third one is the charge which was made, 2 specific charges were made about the privatization of the management of the Delhi Jal Board, the procedure which was followed by Arvind Kejriwal. And in this, he makes 2 charges. One is the complete subversion of the procedures, the tender procedures and so on, to get a particular firm, consulting firm, which is, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which did not qualify at any level, to actually force the Delhi Jal Board to take it over. Again, the primary responsibility, as many people have said, is of the government, that is the Delhi government and the Planning Commission in this case. But the World Bank actually completely glosses over the issue, even though it makes the privatization of the Delhi Jal Board, if you look at the note, and says we don't want essential goods to be, all sorts of platitudes and so on. You can read the World Bank's note. But this is a specific charge about how they subverted a procedure which they had set for choosing consultants, and they have no answer to this, nor do they have an answer to the other charge made that the World Bank was charging an interest rate of about 12% effective interest rate, and they have given calculations based on worldwide figure of what is their rates and so on. This is another specific charge on which the World Bank had no answer. Finally, I want to take up the question which is dear to their heart and dear to our heart, that is democracy, and I'll end with that. World Bank uses lots of very nice words to say that they do not want land acquisition, rights of the indigenous people is to be respected, and so on and so forth. But basically, the best defense which they put up, which is a very contestable defense, is to say that, we are for higher compensation than the Indian standards and the standards of most other countries provides. The most charitable interpretation is they have misunderstood the issue of democracy. I mean, this is the most charitable interpretation. I could give much worse interpretations. Because what is involved here, as you heard today from Jharkhand, as you have heard before, as you have heard from Northeast, basically the issue is there are local communities, there are gram sabhas and so on, unless they decide that they want their common property to be privatized or to be used in some other way, then it should not be done. You see, already when you talk of compensation, and this cuts across political parties, I'm afraid, the issue is not how much compensation you are paying. This already assumes that you are treating it as a market, saleable commodity to which the community has agreed. And as you heard even today, those of you who went here, in Jharkhand, this lady from Jharkhand said that we just don't want to go away from the land where we have lived for centuries. And so have I seen repeatedly in Orissa and elsewhere. And this is a recurring thing. And as I said, the World Bank either does not understand what grassroots democracy is, or they deliberately want to turn a blind eye to this. And finally, I come to where the conference here began. And one of the charges which was made was that World Bank, which talks so much of democracy, not only chooses its presidents, always from the, by the State Department basically of the United States, and there is nothing outside, but two people who had the distinction of being mass murderers in Vietnam and in Iraq were actually made presidents of the World Bank. And the World Bank found it perfectly democratic to talk